morning, good afternoon. Welcome to Marvel Movie Talk here on the Bladtcast Entertainment Network. Very excited to begin our conversation about Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. Not a long enough title. As always, I am Christian Blatt, joined by the Bladtcast's own Jeff Duray, not on Twitter.
Not on Twitter.
And from Marvel Movie Talk and his own show, which we'll make sure to talk about before we're done, Jeff Williams Jr. on Twitter at Jeff Will Jr., unless I'm mistaken.
Nope, that is correct. Jeff Will Jr. across all platforms. Great to be back. Great to talk to you guys.
Absolutely. Now, I've made the point of not asking either of you what you thought of Quantumania. And I got a text from Jeff. I know you were waiting, Jeff Williams. I know you were waiting for a flight, and you were like, they're mid-credit and end credit, but I didn't see it until after the movie was over. I'm like, oh, I could have been really useful. And then also my friend Eric Nagel also sent me the same. He's like, hey, is there an end credit too? And I also missed it. So I've not been helpful to anyone. So for anyone who hasn't seen the movie yet, there is a mid-credit scene and an end credit scene. But if you haven't seen the movie, this is probably when you want to click us off, because we're talking all the spoilers, things that are spoiled on the screen, off the screen, story-wise, all across the board. But Jeff Williams Jr., let me ask you first. Big picture, what did you think of Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania?
What I thought it was what I thought it was. It was what I thought it was going into it. The first two Ant-Mans were not my favorite MCU movies, so I was very skeptical going in, thinking that this is going to be the introduction into Phase 5, and we're all like learning from Ant-Man's point of view. So it's going to be interesting, and it was as wacky and I mean that in a nice way. It was as wonky and crazy. You're saying visually stunning and visually also like a lot of CGI stuff. So it was cool. If I'm giving it out of 10. I think a 6.8 is a great number. So that's where I was. But
6.8. If you get that on every exam, you are going to graduate high school. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. you're not going to be, you probably go to community college, go to state school, after that, but you will graduate. That is a passing grade, 6.8 out of 10.
And this was an MCU movie. It wasn't a great movie, but it was an MCU movie.
It's true. Hey, it wasn't a Fox Universe movie. It wasn't a Sonyverse offshoot of Spider-Man universe movie. It wasn't Jeff's favorite, Jeff Williams's favorite. It wasn't Venom.
Exactly.
There was no carnage to be let in this movie. So if you're searching for nice things to say, it's not carnage is a great place for you to start. Correct?
Oh, without a doubt. I think that's a great just logo for any movie. Like, oh, it's not carnage, but I think that's. I'm gonna just stick with
even.
That.
By the way, even Morbius wasn't carnage. It was like a half a carnage.
Yeah, but I'm on the team of I got to support both movies. So Morbius was great. So was
obviously. Look, we're all excited for Morbius 2. It's Morbin time, and when it is Morbin time, we'll do at least 3 episodes on that. Jeff Duray, your thoughts on Quantumania?
I thought it was fine, but I think it's one of those movies where it benefits from being told it's going to be terrible a bunch going into it, so that you set low expectations.
Right.
I'd say I enjoyed the first Ant-Man. I thought it was funny. The second one was trash. It was just like there was no point in anything that happened in the whole movie. So I'd say this is definitely better.
Clearly, you forgot that an ant played drums in the second one.
My bad. I forgot about
all
that.
Right.
So yeah, Phil Collins played drums, and but
he was in the air tonight.
He was. It was definitely better than the second one. I don't think it was. I didn't like it as much as the first one, but it was fine. And it's also like, I don't know, MCU movies in general have just like lowered their own bar. And I think for 2 reasons. One, there's such high expectations after the Endgame Infinity sagas where it's like, so every movie's going to have every character in it and be 3 hours. Cool. It's not going to happen, right? So people are, I think, sometimes having trouble adjusting to that notion. I think for a movie filled with CGI, right, front to back, I didn't spend most of the movie being like, okay, enough, I get it, you're walking around in a green screen. Like, they did a much better job with the environment than they do with a lot of movies that are this CGI heavy. I think if we're talking CGI, MODOK was such a huge miss. Like, it just looked so bad and was so weird, and it just, like, none of it, like, the MODOK character is kind of silly, so it helped that he's already such a preposterous character already, that we're just going to show his butt and everything else that we did to make him seem more like the Patton Oswalt MODOK. But
Correct,
like,
yes.
he just looked so bad. He looked nothing like Corey Stoll. I mean, I wouldn't have even thought they did a face scan of Corey Stoll to get that. It looked nothing like him whatsoever. So that wasn't so good. And then everything else is just kind of paint by the numbers, right? It's like, oh, father, daughter, and then other fathers and other daughters and missed mothers. And then a guy who's really just missing all of himself. He's missing out really bad because he used to be best friends with himself, and now he's just really resentful.
Was that last one Kang? How he
Yeah.
misses all of himself? Yeah. I was just making sure. Yeah.
Well, and so
go ahead.
one other thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
I found myself with this one, especially with, I think, the first of the post-credit scenes, just being like, I get that the comics came first, but the parallels between Rick and Morty and the MCU are getting a little uncanny.
Well, that's part of the problem, that one of the many screenwriters on this is a Rick and Morty screenwriter. And it's not an accident that it feels like it, you know. You could convince me that a Rick and Morty screenwriter did a pass on Multiverse of Madness, because especially like when they're jumping around, I'm like, okay, yeah, I think I've seen this before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where's Pickle Doctor Strange and all of that? But I think that I think that a lot of attention has rightly so been on MODOK, and I think the problem isn't MODOK on the page, on the script page, the idea that he was going to be Darren, and even his arc, I don't love it, but it's all right. But just visually, I think he's better with the mask on, you know. It's like, once you got the face, you're like, wait, there wasn't another way to do that? You know, you almost feel like it's like, okay, well, this is clearly a temp effect. And I think it's more jarring, Jeff Duray, because of the fact that I really was impressed by most of the effects. You know, I think everything, you know, like the broccoli guy looked good. You know, the guy that they drank, you know, all this stuff looked great. You know, Bill Murray looked like he hadn't been canceled yet. You know, I mean, there's so much that they were able to put on the screen. Jeff Williams, what did you think of the effects, since that's where we've steered our conversation towards right now?
I'm on the same lines as Jeff Duray, when he said that, like, it seemed like the CGI and the effort is not there after Endgame. And even one thing I was thinking about, one thing that stood out to me is every time Cassie and Scott were running towards the screen, running towards the camera, running away from stuff, it was like an obvious green screen. They were just running on a treadmill. And I'm like, why couldn't they just created part of the world and then had green screen, like, be in the upper atmosphere? And what I'm trying to an example would be when in Loki he's running around that town and there's obviously things breaking, destroying, and not all of it's real, but you can tell the buildings are like somewhat real, and it kind of gives a more realistic look to where he's at. It's not one and the same, but that's just my idea of, like, they need to kind of give us some type of realism. Even with the Guardians of the Galaxy in their Christmas special, a lot of that was green screen, but there were still, like, some buildings, some lights that were still there, so it kind of gave us a real look at it. It kind of just took me out a little too much when I was like, okay, so they shot this in the same Star Wars green screen thing that everybody's been talking about the last couple of years, and it's just open world, and I had that feeling since I saw the commercial. So
Right.
the trailer. So it didn't really get any better when I saw it in person.
Well, with the Guardians Christmas special, they did so much CGI in terms of creating characters that there was a version of Kevin Bacon that looked like he'd had a lot of work done. So obviously they really went above and beyond in there. But I know what you mean, and it's interesting because I would never want to put the idea in George Lucas's head to redo the effects in the prequels, but everything was blue screen, green screen, and I think in the decades since, we're almost 25 years away from Phantom Menace at this point. People realize it's like, it's better to have a little mix. And I think that Ant-Man probably did a little bit of it. I think they could have done more where you have some practical stuff on set. And then for the truly just absolutely bonkers stuff, that's what the green screen's for.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, if you're making a movie in a green room, it's going to feel like you made a movie in a green room. I think that there's enough in this world that is believable, surprisingly, because, if you told me almost the entire 2 hours and 30 minutes they're in the quantum realm, I would have been worried before I saw it. I think they did more good than bad, but you're right. The stuff that doesn't quite work definitely jumps out. Jeff Duray's point about MODOK though is not lost. Visually it's very jarring. What were you going to say, Jeff Duray?
I have an idea. Tell me what you think. I would much rather MODOK look like a 1980s Jim Henson Muppet face. I think it would be way more funny. Yeah. I think it would be way more interesting. And then you could just have a quick line of like, keep the mask on. And that's problem solved.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if it was Corey Stoll's voice, and they're like, oh, we don't recognize you. And it's like, really? I thought I looked the same. There's a lot you could do. Yeah, no, absolutely. For me, I think one of the best things that they did was, we get to the quantum realm really quickly. I'm glad that we don't start out there. And I think it's a fun reset, like, hey, look, there's Scott. We get to see his life. He's able to be free now, because I know we've seen him in Avengers movies, but the last time he was in his own movie, he was still under house arrest. So it's like, okay, he gets to go out, he gets to do stuff, get the reset. And speaking of resets, let's hope you don't recognize that we recast Cassie, because you didn't really get to know her in Endgame, so that'll be all right. And and then like they go from that dinner to like, oh well, whoops, we ended up in the quantum realm. And at least I think that they hit the ground running. And I think that, you can have issues with what happens along the way when they're actually there, but they get there pretty quick. So I did not feel that this movie dragged on, but I've heard that from some people. And let me ask you, Jeff Williams, do you feel that there was an issue with the pacing?
No, at all. I totally agree with what you were saying. Like, I love that the fact that they just kind of got into it. There's a lot of story to tell. This is not exactly what we were talking about, but it's about the story. I love the fact that Jonathan Majors or Kang and I'm missing her name already. Janet Van Dyne. Yeah. And like, I love their storyline, because not only was it a cool B plot that kind of led into the A story, but it was kind of reminiscent of like her being an original Avenger, and Kang being an original villain and stuff. So like, it was cool to have that story as well. I thought the pacing throughout was pretty good. Honestly, I didn't think it dragged. It was only 2 hours, so like, I thought they did well for the 2 hours.
Look, after Matt Reeves' Batman, I think that it's going to take a lot for me to feel that a movie slogs along, because even Zack Snyder's Justice League, I knew it was 4 hours going in, and I watched it at home. It was broken up into chapters, so as long as that was, it didn't feel long. Ooh, that Batman movie felt long. And the more I think about it, the more I'm like, would I watch that again? That like 3 hour and 1 minute Batman movie? Jeff Duray, what did you think of the pacing of Quantumania?
I didn't have any problem with the pacing. It definitely moves. And it's almost like there's a lot of ground to cover that they don't even get into. Like, we don't spend any time getting into the backstories of all these like people that live there, right? Like these kind of refugees on the outskirts that are all different kinds of creatures. That's a fascinating story of like, where are you from? How did you get here? Because there's times where it seems like when Kang and Janet get together, it seems like the quantum realm is empty. And now it seems like it's absolutely brimming with different species and all sorts of things, which could be a result of Kang being there, or it could be a result of who knows what. I think one thing that was a miss is in terms of we could have had a beat to better explain why Janet would have kept all of this a secret, because just being like, I didn't want to tell you, is kind of a stupid reason.
Yep.
It's like, oh, I have multiple movies where I could have mentioned this and I'm just didn't. I had no problem with you dipping your toes in the quantum realm until Quantumania, and now it's a
right.
huge problem.
If this happens, in the movie where they rescue her and then later in that movie they end up sucked back in. Okay, he didn't get a chance. There's been a lot of times she could have at least told Hank.
Mhm.
I think she certainly could have told Hank. It is a little like, okay, I guess you didn't talk about it, and you don't have to go into all the specifics, but I agree that, and you can explain that you really wanted to get away from it. I want to bring in some of our friends in the chat. Dominicus Saxon really enjoyed the movie with the tie-in with You Know Who at the end. That is a pretty exciting moment there at the end. Daniel Drew says, still need to see it in non-3D, but enjoyed it. As my blog post says, definitely recommend 3D. Sad about the probably only 2 or 3 Marvel shows this year instead of 5 or 6. That's okay. I think we can focus on that at some point. But in some ways, less is more as long as what we get is better. I would love to have 2 or 3 great shows instead of 5 or 6 that are okay. So whatever it takes. The Marvel's getting pushed back to November, to me says it wasn't going to be ready for the summer. Let's take a little bit more time. Let's make the movie better. So in general, I'm okay with that stuff, except for the sense that, like Daniel, I just want it all right now. It's like, can you just give me all the movies and all the shows, and then I'll watch them at my own pace, which is really just gorging myself on them. I saw the movie twice because the first time I went, I did not make it to the screening that was in the 3D IMAX theater. So I saw it 2D the first time. Didn't have a problem with that, but I really felt like the visuals, there's so much to them. I really wanted to see them 3D and IMAX. And a lot of times I don't feel like I need that for movies, but this one, it kind of felt like something that I would want to see, on the big screen and be reaching for some of the weirder stuff. Jeff Duray, did you see it in a large screen format, or did you see the good old 2D?
I saw it in 3D, and that was definitely worth seeing in 3D. Like, there's clearly a lot of scenes that are crafted for 3D, and you can tell not only from the way the camera moves through it, but especially watching it in 3D, you can see like, oh, you made it move this way to accentuate your 3D shot. Which again, as long as they're crafting it for 3D and they're not just being like, and then we'll slap some 3D into it at the end, like that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm down for it. It's
right.
I think it's something that makes going to the theater more worth it, especially in the age of 45-day streaming windows.
Right. It's a great point. Because I saw it in 2D the first time, when I saw it in 3D, there was one very specific moment. It was when Hope in tiny wasp form was flying like at one of the like those helmet guys, and there was somebody who had like a long tongue that was trying to get her, like the tongue flicking out into the audience. I'm like, okay, this is a very cool like 3D moment, and that's the one that stands out. But I think that there were a lot of those. Jeff, since you basically watched it, in the airport, did you were you beggars couldn't be choosers? Did you get to see a 3D, or did you watch a regular format?
So, look, I watched it in regular 2D, but the tickets that I actually had, I ordered when they first came out, because I didn't think I just forgot that I was traveling that day. So luckily I already had tickets at 6:30 o'clock, or like 6:30 right after work. But it was 2D, and I'm actually one of the people that don't really enjoy 3D. I don't like wearing glasses when I go into the theater. I don't know. It just gave me headaches when I was younger. So like, I haven't watched a 3D movie in ages. I watched all the movies just in 2D version. So like the fact that you guys said that you get more out of it, I'm kind of interested to see, just like this. And then the new Avatar movie, I saw that in 2D, but like I see where people get more out of it in the 3D landscape. It's just I had bad experiences when I was younger, so I just haven't gone back.
Yeah, no, I mean, pre-Avatar, I usually didn't see things in 3D because of, just remembering. And 3D also used to just be really bad. I mean, Jaws 3D, Friday the 13th 3D. The 3D was pretty bad, and you would wear like the red and blue glasses,
Yeah.
the little paper glasses. So, yeah, and I think seeing it for the first time in 2D, I don't feel like you lose that much. It's like extra. You get some cool stuff. Avatar, I feel like so much of the movie is it's 3D that there's not necessarily enough story there. Kame Egan with very indicative of the way people are feeling about this movie. I didn't know how I feel about this one. I liked some of it. Other parts I thought were dragged out. And one character arc I thought was dumb as hell. Kame Egan, tell us which one you think that is. We'll try to get to that. I'm very slow with the chat today. I'm very nervous about bringing in extra elements because, as people may know, I've got my fingers crossed and I've got duct tape holding my Wi-Fi together. But in any case, I think that it's interesting because when I saw it on Monday, the reactions hadn't started to really come out. It was after that when people who didn't like it let you know that they didn't like it, and they let you know why they didn't like it. And because people didn't like it, there were a lot of spoilers getting dropped all over the place. Where I was like people somehow they took pictures of things that were on screen, and usually when you go to these screenings, there's like people watching you like a hawk. So that was a little bit obnoxious. Jeff Williams, were you able to avoid spoilers, or did you know anything going in?
I mean, for the most part, I was able to avoid any big spoilers. And I blame Marvel for that. Because when I watched the trailer, I felt like I knew everything that I needed to know about the movie. It was just gonna be filled up with story. And the fact that like we know who the main villain is, we know they have to save. I mean, I don't know. I didn't see anything new, and luckily there was no spoilers. I guess like the Kang stuff at the end, like the end credits, that wasn't spoiled for me, so I was happy to see it.
Yeah.
The
Right.
the title of like the next Avengers movie kind of spoiled that in a sense, but it was
Yeah.
still really cool to see.
I mean, we've seen versions of this character die twice now, and that like because he died on Loki, and so it's like okay, so that's what's going to happen every time, I guess, and then you get to see an entire arena of them. Jeff Duray, were you able to have anything? Was any? Well, you're not on social media, so it's so much easier to not have things spoiled. So basically, if your girlfriend or your dog didn't spoil it, probably okay.
Yeah, I didn't get any spoilers. I mean, I don't even know what there really is to spoil in this. Like Jeff Williams said, it's all kind of by the numbers, right? Like exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the big problems in the MCU, right? Where it's like it's an episode of a TV show. It's not a movie anymore because a movie has stakes where it's like this might be the entire story. Your hero might die at the end. You might have these things. Whereas with the MCU, it's much more like, and here's your episode of Ant-Man. He's not going to die because you'll know when he's going to die. Don't worry about it.
Right. Exactly. It's you can only pull that off so many times. Like when Tony died, and Jeff Duray, the thing you were saying earlier, I think that people have held up the post Endgame movies to a standard that they weren't before that, because Endgame was a movie that you felt like it could at least be nominated for an Oscar, couldn't it? I mean, it was big, it was epic, and the story and all that. But like everything since, it's more like it's like reading comic books. It's like, okay, yeah, this is like Ant-Man Volume 3, where you kind of remember him and he comes in and you see it, but sometimes it's great, sometimes it's just pretty good, and every once in a while it's just downright bad. And I didn't feel like we got that. I didn't feel like this was bad. I think the only real spoilers were that it was Darren under the MODOK mask, which isn't huge. And then seeing Loki at the end, I think, is the thing that there's a couple of people that I know that I'm glad that they were able to be surprised by that because of how much they love Loki. So Kemi Egan explained a little while ago, I like the introduction of MODOK, but in the end, he decided not to be a dick, was dumb as hell. I can see that being a character arc that you didn't like. I think they telegraphed it by the fact that Kang was just a dick to him and told him not to talk around me. So that's sort of like, hey, remember this. He's got no love for Kang. So maybe he's going to help out some other people. But I don't know. Again, it's Ant-Man, because it is a little bit more of a lighthearted, less serious sort of a thing. Well, we're talking about Kang. Let's talk about who I think people who didn't even really like the movie, people who outright disliked the movie, what they will give as a caveat is that Jonathan Majors was fantastic. And we saw him as He Who Remains in Loki, which is a slightly different version of this character, and we get to see, thousands of him in the mid-credit scene. But I agree that he was great. He was also great in the pilot movie that came out from Sony earlier this year. What was that called, Jeff Williams?
It was called Devotion. It was a great
Devotion.
movie. Yes.
It's a fantastic movie, and I hope everybody saw it. I'm sure it's available for purchase on iTunes now. Or
it's on Paramount Plus.
Yeah.
Look at that. Okay.
That's one thing about Sony. We don't have a streaming service, so like our movies, once it's out of theaters, it just goes random places. No shade to my company. It's just a fact.
No, and you know what? I appreciate that they don't have a streaming service because like MGM has one now, and I think it used to be something different, but it's like, oh my gosh, enough already.
They'll launch it eventually, and they'll tag it to PlayStation. It'll have like a free 6-month subscription when you buy a new PlayStation.
Mm-hmm.
You're absolutely right, because it's like Apple TV Plus. I got it for a year because I got a new iPhone, and they had like 4 shows at the time. Just one of them was Ted Lasso, so it helped. And by the way, I've got 3 months of free Apple TV Plus because I bought this phone, and I'm waiting for Ted Lasso to come back because I'm very smart. In any case, that's not what I was trying to talk about. Jeff Williams Jr., let's talk about Jonathan Majors in this movie.
Yeah, I loved him in this movie. I was excited to see how he continued the character because it was a big part of what I liked about Loki as well, even though he was just in the finale. But I'm a huge Jonathan Majors fan. I think there's going to be a huge character and actor for the MCU. And when he gets to go outside of just a quantum realm and kind of actually see when he meets like our Earth heroes, I think there's going to be some real cool dynamics and real cool standoffs that he has with the new Captain America, with just the new heads of the Avengers, because he's killed Avengers before. So this is nothing new to him. But this is going to be our newest big bad, the biggest stakes. So it's going to be cool to see.
It's a great line that he has. I think it was in the trailer. It's like, have I killed you before? Are you the one with the hammer?
So that wasn't, correct me if I'm wrong. That wasn't in the trailer, but it was in a trailer that was released like at like some conference or whatever, some press conference. And then that line never made it to the actual trailer that was released. Because he was like, have I killed you before? But I still don't think he says that in the movie. Or he might, but he definitely says the hammer line in the movie. That's not in the trailer.
He definitely says that. Yeah.
That was one thing that was spoiled for me. Sorry to cut you off. The Thor hammer thing about him killing Thor. I found that out the day of I was going to see the movie. So that was
I mean, it's the worst is when you're in the movie theater and you like go to the bathroom and somebody's already seen it and they're like, oh man, I can't believe that it was, how about the seeing Loki at the end? That's always like you gotta keep your earbuds in and with whatever you're listening to really loud, because you just you need like total sensory deprivation until you sit down. Jeff Duray, what did you think of Jonathan Majors as our first official iteration of Kang?
I thought he was phenomenal. I mean, I think it's a perfect, I don't know what you want to call it, but it's serendipity, right? Like the perfect actor finding the perfect role, because I love Jonathan Majors. I think he's been, I think we talked about this on the last podcast with Will, where it's like ever since Lovecraft Country, where he really kind of pointed out just how awesome this guy was. He's been doing tremendous projects. And I think the reason why I think he's so perfect for a role like this is because he's got enough charisma to be a leading man and to, like, you know, play this major character, but he's enough of an actor or doesn't take himself so seriously that he won't do the silly voice for Immortus or like all these other things. Like, he's really willing to stretch into all these different versions of this character. And I don't think that's something you always get with people that can lead like A-list movies like he can. So I think it's really awesome to see somebody with that level of talent get to play a role like this, where we really can see him do all sorts of different things.
Right, exactly. I think realizing that you could complement this universe in a way, instead of if you had been, you know, cast as a hero who's like, you know, one of 20 Avengers or something, and really have the kind of impact. I mean, you know, really a Thanos like impact. You know, my thought was towards the end when Scott is keeping him from going back up to, you know, the real world, as it were. And that fight scene, it gets so hand to hand and it's like boxing. That's when I'm convinced. I'm like, oh man, his Creed 3 character is also a Kang, isn't he? You know, I think every character he's ever played has actually been a Kang. So I'm going to develop that theory as I work back through his filmography. But even in Devotion, he might have been a Kang. You know, he was just keeping it all in check the whole time, Jeff.
Oh yeah,
yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, I mean, I think just it's great, you know, because you see in the flashback when Janet meets him, and then as she's finally telling the story, you know, how she gets to know him but doesn't know him at all. Like that reveal, not every actor pulls off that moment where you have the literal, what they call the face turn in wrestling, you know, like I guess that's a heel turn, but it's the look on their face of like, oh, okay, you got me, you figured it out. And it's a great moment. And I think just, you know, the performance is fantastic. I think that they give him lines like, you know, when she asks him, who are you? He's who I need to be. You know, it's not like, I don't know. I feel like in the 90s, it would be like for the trailer, I am Kang the Conqueror. And then, you know, there'd be like 2 more sentences where he describes what he's done. Instead, it's like, well, you got it in your head. You kind of know who I am. And I think that reveal is great because we know he's Kang. You know, we knew a long time ago he was cast as Kang. Before he was even in Loki, we knew he had been cast as Kang. So I think just that interaction is great. And, you know, I think that what they did really well for me with Kang was that you see he's incredibly powerful, but not all powerful. And ironically, his undoing is that he didn't look out for the little guy. He didn't think that, you know, he says to Scott, you talk to ants, you know, and it's like, well, yeah. And so does Hope's dad. He talks to a lot of ants. And that's, you know, I mean, that's not what kills him, but that really, you know, defeats him. And I think that it's a really nice touch because you're beaten over the head by his book. By the way, the book is available for pre-order. It'll be released in September. If Paul Rudd does any book signing, I will definitely buy that book. And if he signs it Paul Rudd, I'll be like, no, you got to sign it to Scott Lang. What are you doing? So, but if they do an audiobook for it, I mean, he was listening to it in the movie. Mm-hmm. So I think that this idea, you know, and I mean, I think, yeah, Cassie says this when she's kind of broadcasting to the quantum realm of like, he's not invincible. He's Kang the Conqueror, not Kang the Invincible. So the idea that you can overwhelm him, but it has to be in sheer numbers of like an entire ant colony. You know, I thought that it was an interesting way to beat him, and it wasn't with just some like time travel trickery. You know, it was kind of getting beaten the old-fashioned way because, you know, they were able to get through all the defenses. But I was very happy with the Kang arc, especially because you know that this arc is going to continue through many movies and sequels. And, you know, we talked a little bit about the mid-credit scene. Jeff Duray, you mentioned that this character Kang is also at different times in his very long existence other characters. He's Ramatut, that's the Egyptian version of him. He's Immortus. Not pictured in here is a character, I think he was called the Druid or just Druid, who was actually a member of the Avengers, like in the late 80s, around issue 300. He also ends up being a Kang. And I think Iron Lad, there's several different iterations of the character, and we didn't even see all of them, and we saw a lot of Kangs, but we didn't see the other versions of him. So I thought them having the conversation, it's just like, oh man, they can really milk this for a very, very long time. And I hope that we get some good storytelling out of the entire Kang dynasty. Any thoughts on the Kang arc before we move on? Let me ask you first, Jeff Duray.
No thoughts on it. I mean, I'm excited for what's to come. So far, so good.
Yeah, right, exactly. And I thought it tied in so nicely with He Who Remains from Loki, and not just the scene at the end. It's just both of these characters, Jeff Williams, like in Loki and this one, they're both saying, no, I'm the good one. I'm the one who's going to stop all the other ones. And I'm just like, oh man, they're all going to say that, aren't they? They all think they're the good one, but they're all the Kang one. So they actually all have to be stopped. And it was something that, was kind of left with Loki. It was kind of like, you can doubt whether or not he made the right decision because maybe he was the good one. But I don't know about you, Jeff Williams, but my takeaway is that they're all bad.
Oh yeah, they're all bad. And it makes me think that I thought this Kang was going to be the one that kind of ventured off and like was going to be the leader for the movies that we've seen. But it does. I don't know if we're going to see multiple Kangs be the main villain in Kang Dynasty, or is one going to kind of go against the group of Kangs and kind of take over the timelines. It's a lot of possibilities. And I'm excited. I'm excited to see where the storyline goes. I'm just interested to see where it's going next, because we have Guardians of the Galaxy, which seem pretty.
I think it's fairly self-contained.
Yeah, self-contained. I think the Marvels is the obvious next step for him. I don't know how, but I think that's just the next movie, and I think they're going to be going. I don't know who their villains are yet, so have they been confirmed? I'm just guessing where he could be next. Also, because Kevin Feige was on the red carpet for this movie, getting excited about Kang, and he said we already, and just stopped. So like, he almost pulled a Tom Holland saying that like they've already shot it, they've already talked about what his next movie like. So there's some excitement going around with Kang, and I'm excited too.
Yeah, they should not put Tom Holland in any of these movies because he'll tell everybody, that he's in it. Just to take a step back, I like this point from Kami. Again, I loved the look of the quantum realm. It gave great fantasy vibe and reminded me of Dorothy going into Oz for the first time. I think the reveal there was actually pretty cool, and I think it is something that if they hadn't put the right amount of care into it, it easily wouldn't have worked. And I thought that, there was the right amount of fun because this is an Ant-Man movie. I think that Bill Murray character doesn't work in a lot of MCU movies, but he absolutely does in here. And, I think that I talked to a friend who was disappointed that he doesn't come back later in the movie. I'm like, that squid thing ate him, I mean, how is he coming back? And he's like, well, it shouldn't have eaten him. I'm like, yeah, but I mean, this whole movie tries to teach you, look what happens when you're a dick. You get eaten by a giant squid, or you end up with little baby legs dangling under your chin, So I don't know. I didn't have a problem with that. And I meant to look him up, but I loved the telepath, the actor who played Chidi on The Good Place. He has a very small role, but it was very funny. And again, it's an Ant-Man movie, just like a Guardians movie. Those are the funny ones. Those are the ones where you get to have kind of the wacky characters that, how many holes do you have? Questions like that. Those don't work in some other movies, but, There's those kinds of movies where those questions work very well, but that's not what I mean. Other MCU movies where those kind of questions wouldn't work. So yeah, in general, I felt like I was fairly happy with most of it. I think a big question mark was, did Michael Douglas realize he was in this movie? If you ask him, hey, how many Ant-Man movies were you in? Would he say, oh, I was in the first two, but they didn't film anything with me for the third one? No, you're actually in it. Wait a minute, I was? And I think that he actually has a really important role, because that was my thought before he comes back with the ants. As I'm watching it, I'm like, well, what's Michael Douglas doing here? You know, it's like he's got to adjust his hearing aids. And, you know, I think it's important that everybody was there. But I think that it's not even really a complaint. I was just like, they didn't really do that much with Hank. What did you think, Jeff Duray?
Well, I mean, yeah, we didn't really need him. I mean,
Yeah.
you didn't, like we said, there was already the movie was moving, because I mean, we don't really spend too much time with anybody but Scott. I mean, there's the little bit of Kang and Janet, but outside of that, it's like we got to keep with Scott and we got to keep the story going. Because one of the things I would say I really enjoyed about the old ones was his old little thievery crew, right? With T.I. and Michael Pena, and then they did get the Dostalmakian kid. He voices Veb, the thing that turns into Kirby that they drink.
Oh yeah,
That's funny.
Right. Yeah.
But other than that, it's like you'd think if they had time to like get into other characters, we would have gotten a little cameo with them. I was disappointed we didn't get one of the after credit scenes with them, but yeah, that would have been one thing I would have enjoyed, because they were definitely the best, one of the brighter parts of the early Ant-Man movies.
Yeah. By the way, in the chat, the delightful Lynn B, who people would remember from the old Dennis Miller show. Lynn B, I felt like you posted that you had a lot of questions, and where maybe it was just that you didn't like it. I'm not sure, but I believe she brought her grandkids to it, which, boy, the movies that I made, my poor grandmother, she really liked Back to the Future, but I'll tell you what she didn't like: Gremlins and Labyrinth. Those are movies that were not for my grandma. So, you know, grandmas end up seeing all kinds of things. You know, I guess this is, and I think that this is probably better for a grandmother than certainly Labyrinth. I don't even know if she knew who David Bowie was, but I digress. What did you think, Jeff Williams, about, you know, Michael Douglas, the amount of stuff they gave him to do, really? You know, I mean, it's funny when he would pilot the ship, you know, but I mean, there wasn't that much here for him.
Yeah. It's after seeing the movie, I understand why they said, if you're in an Ant-Man 4 movie, what would you want to see happen? And he said, for my character to die. He said on the red carpet, and I'm like, everybody just laughed, but I'm like, he wasn't in much of 3, so like, yeah. I get it. He played that like random, we still need to beat Kang, and out of nowhere we have something that takes him out in that second. But like, even to that point, to what my statement, I feel like they kind of teased us with it so well, and I thought he just had hearing issues. I'm like, why is he messing with his ears? I did not think about the ants until that moment, and then like when they showed us him messing with his ear, I was like, that makes so much sense.
Yeah,
and
no, that was actually a good reveal. Yeah, I think.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, Lynn B says, I like the old guys, and what I'll tell you is that I like him in general, and I think he's great. I think he's been good in other movies, other Ant-Man movies, especially the first one. I just wanted him to have more. But what I will say is that Michelle Pfeiffer, to open the movie with her kicking ass in a week where, minor spoiler for season 3 of Star Trek Picard, it starts off with Gates McFadden, who played Dr. Crusher on the old show, in a firefight basically on a ship. And I'm like, man, in the same week, you have women, let's just say of a certain age, that are showing you like, oh yeah, no, but we can obviously kick ass because we're space ladies, you know? And I was just like, it's cool to see, because you don't see that. You usually see people of a certain age walking around checking their hearing aids, or they get all their girlfriends together to go see Tom Brady at the Super Bowl, you know? So I'm glad that Michelle Pfeiffer gets to be a little bit of an action hero. I mean, in her flashback, there's even the moment where she, activates the Wasp suit. And you see her trying, even without the suit, in the quantum realm in the present day. So I think that I like both of them. I was glad that we got so much of her. And I think it's just they somehow didn't have enough for Hank to do. And by the way, Wimby does explain that she did like the movie, which is great. I'm glad. And I hope the grandkids liked it. And she went to a theater where they paid extra for the seats that vibrated in sync. I've only seen a couple movies like that, and I don't think I liked it. Have you guys ever been to the ones where the chairs shake and stuff like that? Like I've gone at like the Air and Space Museum in Washington. There's like IMAX, movies where you're supposed to be experiencing like reentry, in like the space shuttle. I'm like, that's fine. But an actual like narrative storytelling, I'm like, don't shake my chair. I don't usually like it. Do either of you guys like that sort of thing?
So there's the furniture store I've told you about, the Jordan's furniture. They've got the IMAX, and one of the things, of course, in their nice thick Boston accents that they'll say in the previews is, all your seats have butt kickers, which means there's like a bass in the seat, so you get like a little bit of extra rumble feeling like directly. That's nice, but I mean, much more than that. It's like, I don't need my drink to spill on myself because a friggin' Tyrannosaurus came on screen. Like, no thanks.
Your seat has a built-in butt kicker, and in the cup holder, an endless supply of Sam Adams red lager.
Yep.
But what about you, Jeff Williams? Do you want your seat shaking? If you didn't like 3D, I feel like you don't want to feel like you're on a roller coaster.
Yeah, I normally I wouldn't want my chair shaking throughout the time, but like if I had to pick a movie, it'd be like Fast and the Furious. I feel I need something racing, something that you're kind of like moving a little bit, shaking, just getting the rumbles, but not like in a Marvel movie, you'd probably shake after everyone shoots something. So I think it could be kind of different levels of the vibration, but I feel like any racing movie could be a cool one to watch.
Yeah, I could see. Yeah, you've come up with a scenario where like a racing movie would actually probably feel pretty cool. And by the way, going to see the first public showing of Ant-Man at 3 p.m. on Thursday, you better believe that crowd booed the Fast X trailer. It was just like resounding, and it was very funny because usually I get annoyed if people talk back or like chime in, but because it was the trailers, after the trailer ended, this one guy was like, "Don't worry, it's the last one," and everybody laughed. So I was like, all right, that was okay. But we're getting a lot of attention for Janet. Dominica Saxon, she kicked Michelle Pfeiffer kicked ass in this movie. Michelle Pfeiffer is still stunning. Absolutely. I definitely agree with that. And I think that she was great. And I'm just like, I always wonder, like, how much more of them are we going to see? Evangeline Lilly, makes headlines because somebody had a tweet, and I wish I could give them credit. I think I might have even taken a screenshot of it, but they said that the best performance by Evangeline Lilly was in the beginning of this movie where she pretended that she was someone who believed in science. So, it's, look, you deal with things like that. And those are headaches that Feige doesn't necessarily want to have to deal with. And I mean, the thing is, these Ant-Man movies are successful, but they're not Iron Man successful or Spider-Man successful. So you have to wonder, like, how many standalone Ant-Man movies starring Paul Rudd are they actually going to make? Well, hang on. It was somebody named Cody Derricks on Twitter, Cody Monster 91. She's giving the performance of her life playing someone who believes in science. So I want to give credit. I steal enough jokes where I don't remember, but I actually did a screenshot of that because I'm like, I know I'm going to mention it, and I want to give a credit to someone. And I'm sorry, who was trying to talk? Jeff Duray?
No, I think Jeff Williams. Just going to say Evangeline Lilly, she was either interviewed, she said it somewhere about how she would love to see more of her character, like, because there's more storylines to tell. And I'm like, but like, why?
Yeah, but like, why?
I feel like that was a resounding answer on Twitter. It was like, but who's asking for this other than the main actress who would be working on the show?
First of all, are you growing your hair back? Because that's a starting point for, like, let's go from there. If the answer is yes, then we can entertain.
But
Look, Jenna
no-
Van Dyne, the Wasp, I mean, is such a, I mean, she's Hope Van Dyne, but the Wasp character is such an important part of the Avengers for the entire run of the comic book. So I think having Wasp at all is great, but I could look if they find a story for her. I thought she was great on Lost. I feel like she hasn't done that much since then. I haven't seen her in anything really, but I feel like she's interesting enough. You want to give her a mini series, I guess. You want to put that on Disney Plus. That's not at the top of my list, but I don't know that I need more of her. Let us know in the chat if you're itching for more Hope. Early in our conversation, I referenced the fact that they recast the actress who played Cassie, and I don't mean they just recast the little girl. There was an adult Cassie in Endgame that was a different actress, and I think it is for the simple reason that we're going to see a lot of her, because we've got this iteration of whether it's Young Avengers or whatever group they're putting together that includes, if it's Thunderbolts, that has Yelena Black Widow and Kate Bishop Hawkeye, and they probably just felt like we need somebody who we can run out there a lot, and I think she did well enough in the action scenes. To Jeff Williams's point, when her and her dad were running, it looked like they were on the treadmill, but that's all right. It happens. But I thought she was good. I mean, I didn't walk away from this movie like, wow, Jonathan Majors was exceptional, and Catherine Newton, who played Cassie, was right there below. No, I mean, I thought she was good, and I feel like the studio just sees something in that they want her to be in a lot of movies or TV shows coming forward. If they had the same actress, and I don't mean the little girl, if they had the same actress from Endgame, I don't think it would have really showed, but I don't know. I mean, I think her story with her dad is the little bit of heart that there actually is here. She like really kind of gives him a couple of gut punches early in the movie as a dad that I was like, oh man, they are going to talk to me that way, aren't they? It's like, well, at least I'm around, things like that. And I'm not saying that in any way she's bad. I just feel like she's fine. Jeff Duray, as our friend Will would say, it's fine. But I feel like she's going to be an important character coming forward, and that we're not going to see as much Paul Rudd, and maybe we're not going to, and maybe there'll never be another Ant-Man movie. It has nothing to do with the way what the tomato meter says about this. What do you think, Jeff Williams, about the future of Pym particles and the Lang family and the Van Dynes, and I guess the Pyms? It's all of them.
Yeah, the only way I could see us going back to the Pym particle family is on a TV show. And it's gonna have to be around Cassie, because they need to move forward with the MCU with these stories. I can't see us talking anymore about Hank, about any of the older characters. But I think she was all right. I think what kind of took me away from this was that she kind of played the same role, the same role as Yelena in the TV. I cannot think of that TV show. In Hawkeye TV show.
Yeah, she was in it. Yeah, right.
So and I just felt like that was the same role. So I don't know how they're both gonna be, and I'm saying the wrong name. It's not Yelena. What is the girl's name in Hawkeye?
Kate Bishop.
Kate Bishop. So like, how they kind of act like they know a lot about what the superhero world already at the beginning. They tell themselves, they get kind of kicked on their butt, and then they're gonna be the next iteration of that. It kind of seemed like they both had the storyline, Kate Bishop, and then the Ant-Man movie as well. So it was like, I just saw a lot of similarities, and I don't know how they're gonna work together in a movie since they kind of have the same background. I don't know. I'm sure they'll find a different way, but the same comedic style, everything just felt the same to me, and that's why I wasn't like too excited.
Well, if they take all of these actresses and they unearth the script for the pilot for Fox Force 5, which is the fictional film that Marcellus Wallace's wife, played by Uma Thurman, was in Pulp Fiction, I would like to see that movie. I don't know how I know it's a long way to go, but I don't. I wonder how they will do, on the screen together. I think it'll be interesting. Daniel Drew, always doing the homework, and has a good point. He says the role of Cassie could have made Emma Furman's career. I assume that's the actress from Endgame. They've trusted unknowns before, and they should have done that for Cassie. Look, I think that, excuse me, sorry. I think that in Endgame, she didn't have to do any fight scenes, and maybe they just felt like she wasn't the best choice for it. I don't, how many times on iterations of this show do we hear people talk about how Terrence Howard should have been Rhodey? A point that I don't think I think that we got just enough Terrence Howard as Rhodey. I don't think we need it anymore. But it's he's well suited towards other roles. But I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see where the future of these characters are. My one storytelling moment that I thought I would have liked, and let me know what you guys think. I'll run this by everybody that I'll be talking to about Ant-Man. I thought that Hope and Scott were going to end up left in the quantum realm. Now, not forever. I think that would have been a story to be told another time. That it just looked like she sacrificed being in the real world to save him, but also to stop Kang. And she was willing to do that. And then no, there wouldn't have been a movie of them in the quantum realm, but you could have, done a miniseries, a comic book tie-in. I'm like, that could have been interesting. And there's some stakes that were missing from the movie, in that happening. Like, well, Cassie got back. Hope basically did the reverse of what her mother had done. She sacrificed herself to go into the quantum realm, let her mom and her dad get out. And it just felt like a missed opportunity. I actually thought we were going to get that because there's like this split second where I'm like, oh man, they're stuck there. And then it's like, it took Cassie like years to figure out how to draw a map of the quantum realm. But now it's like, she just basically did the old star 69 and returned the call and opened the portal again. So that was a moment that fell a little flat for me. What do you think, Jeff Duray? Would that have been good, or is that just not the way Hollywood works and it needed to have a happier ending?
Yeah, it kind of goes back to the point I made before, where it's an episodic TV show, right? So we need to go back to stasis. Everybody's back home. Everything can go back to where it needs to be. There don't need to be as big of stakes in terms of these immediate characters' lives. The biggest stakes that we're changing are that Kang the Conqueror's gone and the other Kangs noticed. That's about it, right? It would have been much more interesting if she got stuck in the quantum realm with him, because then again, it's like we said, like, then we don't need to keep having Ant-Man movies. And then this Ant-Man movie is more significant. And then the character's actions are significant. It was just a kind of a lazy Deus Ex Machina, and now you can come home. And it doesn't even take me like a while to figure it out. I figured it out while you were having your fist fight, and now come home.
Yeah, I mean, they really seem to not want their movies to go much beyond 2 hours, but you could have had like some time lapse of like, boy, look at the crazy shit they got into down there in the quantum realm. But instead, it's like, okay, yeah, there was like a moment of peril, but everything's okay. What do you think, Jeff Williams? Is that something you would have liked?
No, because I actually think if they would have stayed in the quantum realm, I would have walked out thinking, so we got to watch the Ant-Man 4, because I don't want them to come back and just say like, I'm good, like bring them home. But to put that same point, I would like there have been greater stakes. So someone had died. You know what I'm saying?
Well, Kemi Egan says, I was expecting someone to remain in the quantum realm. I thought Janet and Hank, I mean, that could have saved them some money for some expensive actors, I suppose. But sorry, finish your thought, Jeff.
I just think that like to raise the stakes, someone needed to die or something. And that sounds dark, but like if you leave in the quantum realm, you have to go back and there's still more to get it. If someone dies, there's still big stakes. There's still anger, there's still heart, but you're not going back to Ant-Man 4 or something. There's no. I think it could have been more closed if there was someone that they had a death, and it would have been maybe more impactful. But leaving someone in the astral world, quantum realm, I'm good. I don't want to go back.
Well, you just made me realize what the biggest problem with that would be. The post-credit scene of Ant-Man and the Wasp, the second one, Scott gets left in the quantum realm because everybody else gets dusted. So then that would have been 2 movies in a row where Scott gets stuck in the quantum realm. So it's like, oh, that's his thing, where he always gets there. And look, them getting out and having the dinner together, it does give that narration where he's like, yeah, but everything's good, right? We did the right thing, didn't we? I'm like, okay, I do like having that little punctuation mark on there. And, just as we've referenced, teasing the future Kangs and, the one show we know we will see sometime this year being Loki. There's a lot more Ant-Man conversation to have, a lot more Quantumania. But before we move on, Jeff Duray, I want to make sure that have we gotten to all of the main points you had, or was there something that you wanted to make sure to get to before we close the book on this part of our conversation?
No, I mean, in terms of this movie, I think we've hit it all. I think one thing where we were just bringing up is now sticking in my head of just like how much we're telling the same story over and over again, right? Like, and then there's a young woman and she's going to learn how to become the hero that this other person was the hero for. And then we'll replace him or her.
Yeah. No, exactly.
That was like all of Phase 4. It's like introducing new characters, but in the same exact way. But there were some great products.
By the way, Ghost 8386 says that ending where they get stuck in the quantum realm was in the original plot leak. It felt like there was a draft of this story where it could have ended there. It didn't feel like they shot it that way, and then everything else was additional photography. But there's times where you just feel like in some draft you can feel like this thread went in that direction. Like I said, our Ant-Man conversation will continue, but Jeff Williams, I wanted to give you an opportunity to let people know about an exciting venture that you've started. It's not just looking at homes that you one day hope to be able to buy, but take a moment and tell everybody about the interview show that you're doing.
I appreciate that. One thing I just started is the Create Your Opportunity podcast, where I interview different people who I believe are real difference makers in their respective industries. So the first one has been a YouTuber and a rapper turned YouTuber who does a bunch of shoe influences videos, and also has interviewed everyone from Michael Jordan to Kobe Bryant. So he was a great interview. I learned a lot about him. I've actually been friends with him for years. And then the second interview that just came out this past Friday is with the point guard from the Minnesota Timberwolves. He's been through the G League, been through different teams, getting cut and stuff. So like, there's been a road to his journey to the NBA. So it was great to learn about that. And he's from California, so there's a lot of homegrown basketball players in his area. So it was just great to hear his story as well. But the emphasis is just learning different stories, figuring out how the audience, myself, and how people can create opportunities for themselves. And that's just what the emphasis of the whole interview process is. And then with real estate, it's like I want to create opportunities for myself, obviously, when I'm getting buying houses. But when I'm working with clients and everything, how can I show people that these opportunities are open to them as well? How financially or career-wise or just residentially, how can we create opportunities? So I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And we mentioned that you can be found at Jeff Will Jr. To find the podcast. Where do people go to do that?
Yeah, so it's at Jeff Will Jr. on all social media platforms, even YouTube. And you can just look up the Create Your Opportunity podcast. The full episodes are on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Music.
Great. And to tidy up some housekeeping, Daniel Drew says Loki and Secret Invasion and X-Men, the animated series, which the X-Men animated series is officially called X-Men 97, are the only shows confirmed for this year. Some of us are very excited about that. Cami Egan wanted to know if I'm watching Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur with my daughter. I have recorded those on YouTube TV. I do think she'll really like it. As I've talked about, my daughter loves the preschool Spidey and His Amazing Friends, which way more than my kid ever gravitated towards any of the Spider-Man characters. But it's got Green Goblin, it's got Rhino and Sandman and Black Cat. So it's like my daughter's already at 5 knowing all these characters. So but Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, we'll talk about that on Marvel Movie Talk at some point. I want to get some of those episodes under my belt, but I'm waiting to watch them with my daughter. But I'm glad you brought that up. That does look great. And Ghost 8386, I enjoyed all the Ant-Man movies. You know what? I agree with you on that. I did like all of them. I thought that this was fun. I don't know what people were looking for that this didn't deliver. I'm sorry that not everybody loves every MCU movie that they see. But you also don't have to. Just don't, like we said about Darren, don't be a dick and decide that you're going to post all the spoilers because you didn't like a movie, So let's not do that. But we will continue the conversation about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania tonight at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. I'll be joined by our friend Eric Connor and Katie Hampton. We will also talk about it. And then I will have another episode that'll be posting next week. So join us, talk Quantumania with us. If we didn't get to your comments in here, please leave them in the actual comments on the video, or join us for our next conversation. Jeff Duray, not only is he not on Twitter, he's not on Instagram, he just doesn't want you to find him, but he's on the Bladtcast regularly enough. So you can find him there. If you have comments for Jeff Duray, you send them to me and I'll share them.
Especially if they're mean.
Yeah. Oh, the meaner the better, please. If they're mean, can you please send them as a song? I mean, just imagine if somebody writes a mean song about you, Jeff.
That would actually be amazing. I would really appreciate that.
So that's the homework for everyone. Can you do a Jeff Duray diss track, basically? I want somebody to go out there and do it. I'll see if I can reach out to Shareable Texas, who did the Bladtcast, the Listen into Bladtcast theme song. In any case, it's fun to have new Marvel movies to talk about, and I'm okay with anybody who doesn't like them. Nobody has to defend why they don't like them. Just explain why you don't like them. Tell me what it is that you didn't like. A lot of times somebody will tell me something about a movie and I'm like, yeah, you know what? I didn't like that either. It didn't ruin the movie for me. But very rarely will you talk to somebody and then like why they hate a movie. You're like, okay, they're just crazy. They like didn't see this thing, but it happens. But usually it's like, yeah, that thing probably wasn't.
I think my favorite was when I got unsolicited. I was standing outside a convenience store in LA. This was after the DC Joker movie had come out. Some guy just came up to me. He's like, the Joker movie was terrible, right? I was like, okay. He's like, yeah, just like white incels. And I was like, sure, right. I'm not going to engage. So I was like, yeah, okay. And he just like completely unsolicited. I didn't even make eye contact. The guy just came to be like, we hate that movie, don't we?
Like, he needed a friend.
We do. Yep.
He definitely needed a friend. And somebody that does that, whatever it is, if they bring that energy to you, you want to agree with whatever they're saying. You're like, yeah, I'm not going to disagree with anything. Well, I appreciate all of it and look forward to continuing the conversation. And, we're going to get less Marvel TV during the course of this year, which means we're going to do more episodes where we do stuff like watch Elektra and the Ang Lee Hulk. And so we'll keep you posted for that. I've kind of been saving that stuff for a reason. And oh boy, to have like half as many shows this year, I think we'll have some fun. I always enjoy talking Marvel. I hope everybody else does. All opinions welcome, whether you like water dragons or not. But for right now, that is all the time we have. We'll see you tonight at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. If you're up late, Daniel Drew, take a nap, stay up. We always need your help. That's all right, actually, if nobody wants to do that. It's not a problem. But you can always find the other ones here on the Bladtcast YouTube channel. Please subscribe, BLADTCAST. And we'll see you next time. As the great Stan Lee would say, Excelsior!